How's it going, guys? Welcome back to my YouTube channel. My name is Georgiemon and I'm your friendly neighborhood anime and manga fan. I love all things anime and all things manga, and I'm here today to talk about Spice and Wolf episode 24. So, what did I think about this week's episode? Honestly, I thought this week's episode was really good. I think it was a solid episode it seems like it's wrapping up the story. Because in this week's episode, we get to see pretty much a lot of what it seems to be like the final climax of this season, which thus far, I think this season has been fantastic. I've been loving every single second of this, new adaptation of the anime. As a big anime fan of the original, I've been very happy about this week's episode. Of the entirety of the show, and this week's episode was no exception. Now, before I go any further with this week's episode, I just want to give you guys a quick reminder to make sure to subscribe to my YouTube channel so you guys can be up to date with all my anime and manga, as well as all my Spice and Wolf content that I'll be providing in this channel. It really helps out a lot, and I would really appreciate it if you guys could subscribe to my YouTube channel. So if you guys could, please subscribe to my YouTube channel. Now, with all that out of the way, let's get into this week's episode. So this week's episode starts off where we left off last time, which is pretty much Lawrence and Holo and the rest of the Elsa and Evan. They're getting out of the cave, and as we see in the cave, we see that pretty much once they're leaving, Evan starts pointing out like, whoa, look, this is the hole, and even Lawrence points it out as well, that they had already kind of seen the exit, at least when Lawrence and Holo were entering the town. They noticed like an exit or like a cave, and that cave ended up being the exit way of the tunnels that they were exploring. So that was a nice way to bring it back from the foreshadowing of that from the beginning to now. So that was really well done. And we see that pretty much they're like, oh, maybe the snake made this, like maybe the snake made this hole and all this, and a lot of speculation from their behalf. And eventually you see that Elsa's like, okay, so now we gotta get out of here, man. So we see that Lawrence and Holo are like, all right, let's do this. And as Holo, she's ready to transform into her wolf form, she tells Lawrence like, hey, you might want to warn them because you might want to warn them to turn around. So then Lawrence is like, all right, turn around, close your eyes because you might be afraid. And Lawrence is like, remember, this is just a dream that will come before dawn, or something like that, along those lines. So we see that pretty much Holo's like, all right, she eats some of her wheat, she transforms, she's the huge wise wolf once again, and pretty much she's like, hey, you guys, come on guys, get on top. We're carpooling this, to paraphrase. And we see that they all get on top of her, and she eventually starts riding, and obviously it's very hard for them to keep up because it's a lot of speed and a lot of bumpy roads and all that. Or it's a bumpy ride. There you go, that's the word. And eventually, Holo's like, all right, let's take a little break. Then no one should be able to, catch up to us for a while. And that was very thoughtful of Holo, because I'm sure if it was Holo from the beginning of the story, she would not have been this nice. She would have just gone, she would have just booked it nonstop for the entirety of the trip. But since she's more compassionate now, she has more respect, especially towards Lawrence, and she is way more kinder of a person than she was before. So at the pretty much that little scene solidified that, and how much progress she's done as a character up to now in this point, which I really enjoyed. Now we see that eventually she's like, all right, everybody, go to sleep, and they're both like, okay, and they're on top of her, like, by the way, I mean for you to get off of me, all right? Because Elsa and Evan were on top, and they're like, okay, let's go to sleep, and they're like, and that's when Holo's like, no, I don't mean on top of me, bro. And it was a cute scene, because then we see Holo's Lawrence like, hey, or Holo, she's like, I look like a mother right now, don't I? Because she's like cuddling with the two of them, which was really sweet. And we see that Lawrence is like, hey, I'm gonna go sightsee for a bit, is that okay? And then Holo's like, go ahead, you should be safe. So Lawrence goes, and he eventually stumbles upon like a crowd, and that's where Evan also he goes and checks up on what Lawrence is doing. And what they both see is that they seem to be the kingdom of Ember. See a bunch of soldiers, a lot of knights, then they seem to be marching to the village. And obviously it's not going to be any good, because this seems like, an all-out conflict. And obviously Lawrence and Evan, they're like, hey man, what's going to happen? And Lawrence is like, well, they're probably going to be screwed, man. Like, that's simple as I can say. And we see that pretty much after that, they go back to the camp, and Elsa's like, hey, I need to talk to Holo. Can I talk to you for a second? Holo's like, yeah, what is it? And she's like, hey, are you a god? She just straight up asked that to Holo, and Holo's like, well, humans did call me a god, and they, I can transform I can take the form of the weed. I can live through the weed. I can, make people harvest their crops. I can transform into a human body as well as, a wolf form. So that's what title that they gave me. And, as they continue talking, you see Elsa being like, what, I understand what Father France was, what we was fighting for. And I have to ask you now, are you God? and or she was about to say like, are you, and then Hollow's like, you can decide, don't ask me that question, that's a question that you yourself have to like figure out. That don't get me involved with all this philosophical stuff. And we see that Elsa gets like a conviction from that. She's like, okay, I'll carry on Father Fratz's will, and I'll continue to tell these stories about these other gods and all that. And as that's happening, we see that eventually, as we're thinking they're gonna leave now. We're wrong, because we see that Elsa's like, okay, I'm gonna go back to the town and the village, and Evan is like, what are you doing? And so is Lauren's like, what? And she's like, I'm gonna stay for my people, because that's my church and I'm supposed to protect my church, so I'm gonna stay and do whatever I can, no matter whatever the cost. And Evan obviously is very worried, and Elsa, she's like, take care, Evan, be a good merchant, just live a happy life. And she leaves, and Evan's pissed. He's like, wait, what am I supposed to do? Like, Lawrence, what are we supposed to do? It's like, Lawrence gives him some words of advice that carries from the previous arc, where he's like, you're a merchant, always make sure what your gains suffice your losses. Like, make sure which one is less of a burden. Always make sure that what is worth losing and what isn't worth losing. And that, I think that's a nice lecture from Lawrence, especially from the previous arc with Amadi, and the option that he was about to lose Hollow, how much of a big takeaway that was for him. So I think that he was, at least my interpretation of this scene is that he was giving that same wisdom to Evan now that he's learned from those mistakes. So I like that. And we see that eventually he's like, I'm gonna go with the village and go help Elsa. And as that's happening, you see Hollow gets pissed. She gets her red eyes, and she actually tackles down Lawrence in her wolf form, and she's like, what is this? Like, what is this about? And Lawrence is like, Hollow, what's the deal? And you see that pretty much what's happening with Hollow, she is taken by anger, because she starts realizing like, she didn't do what Elsa did, which is go back to her town and protect them. And that's what she's taking it so personally, at least from my interpretation of the scene. I might be wrong, correct me in the comment section if I am. But we see that she's talking to Lawrence, is like, I want to, like, she went back there, and I was out of my town, in Jiu-Jitsu, when the bear attacked and wrecked everybody. Nobody could stop it. I fought so many people. I fought gods, I fought other type of animals, and I never lost because I'm the wise wolf. And Lawrence is like, okay, well, you think you could have fought, and even if you were there, you think you could have defeated it? And Hollow's like, I don't know. And she's like, I believe like that. Like, I think, no, my bad. I think Lawrence is the one that's like, that question doesn't matter, because at the end of the day, you weren't there. You can live in the past and and regret what you did, but at the end of the day, it doesn't change what has happened today. And you don't want to just live in the past and feel with the burn and all that. There's nothing you could have done. I mean, you were out of there, and I'll tell you what, if you at least tried to fight the bear, they would have given you 3 pages worth of the story just solely on that fight. So that obviously comes down Hollow. And then Lawrence kind of comforts her in a very sweet way, where he hugs her, and it's like, it's okay. It's like, what are we gonna do now? It's like, whatever you want to. And from there on, we also see that Hollow introduces this element where she can do something with wheat. We don't know that just yet what she can do, but I'm sure we'll see that in the next episode. And how the episode wraps up is that we pretty much see that after Lawrence has seen the miracle that Hollow has done with the wheat, she tells like Elsa and Evan, like, hey, what if we do this? Would that be able to suffice Emberk, the kingdom, and be able to make everything back to normal and fix everything? So that's how the episode ends, and we see that pretty much Elsa and Evan, they're like, Elsa's praying, she's like, please everything go well, and Evan's like, I might die, but hey, if I die, please tell me like you'll kill me before I die from the poison, all right? And there's that funny scene where Hollow's like, oh yeah, I'll swallow you whole, so don't worry. So it was a funny scene overall, and I think that this week's episode really set up well what's to come in the next episode, because I myself don't even know what's gonna happen, so that's pretty good. I'm very excited to see the climax of this series, because like I said, this is all new content for me, and I've been very much enjoying this reboot very, very much so, very thoroughly. And it's very sad to know that next week's episode is the end, I believe. I think there's only 25 episodes in this season, so it's very sad, but I'm also very happy for the experience that we got out of it. And yeah, I can't wait to see what happens in the next time. But with all that being said, what did you guys think about this week's episode? Did you guys love it? Did you guys hate it? Did you guys think it was alright? Whatever you guys thought, let me know in the comment section down below. Also, thank you so much for sticking all the way to the end of the video. I really appreciate it. And don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to my YouTube channel for more Spice and Wolf, as well as more anime and manga content in the near future. But yeah, with all that being said, I hope you guys have a great rest of your day. Bye bye.